Okay, good evening, everyone. So it looks like today all my partners in crime are not able to join me. But anyhow, today's topic is going to be quite interesting, and I hope I could fill at least 30 minutes of information about the ego, the death of the ego, and something to just help you along, to give you some tips about why the death of the ego probably is not a good idea. Especially when we are talking about our spiritual journey, our spiritual growth, and how exactly embracing, loving our ego will actually support you and help you. Now, first, let me share a little about what exactly is the ego here in the whole context, right? Um, a lot of people they seems to use the term egoistic and to describe somebody who are being very egoistic to be very hard to get along, very difficult to get along, and just somebody that is just difficult to deal with, right? So in that context, it is not how we feel and experience the true ego that is actually within us. As I explained in some of the YouTube before, what exactly is the ego or our soul makeup? Now, in our soul makeup, my experience has always been that we have the soul, who's actually in charge, the higher self, who is here to remind us about our soul contract, about what our purpose, and what we're here to want to experience. So the higher self is here to support us and guiding us, right? Now, another misnomer or misconcept about the higher self is that people seem to think that the higher self is perfect. I often hear people say, let's connect deep within us, try and connect with our higher self, and the higher self will be able to do some miracle to our life. Not true. Okay. And finally, the ego that many people don't want to talk about or don't connect to is actually here to play a very big role in our whole spiritual growth journey or even our personal growth journey. So, what exactly is the ego here to do, and what is the ego here to serve? The ego is our protector. Think of our ego as our bouncer when you're going to the club, right? The ego is here to protect us from pain and from death. Now, because of the complexity of the world we live in, it is no longer as simple as running away from a tiger that's chasing you and want to eat you. It is no longer about just be careful and not to fall off the cliff. The ego now has a more complicated job to do. And it is, for example, the pain that we feel from rejection, the pain that we feel from not enough people liking our post, the pain of not being approved, the pain of not being accepted. Um, this to us is very painful in the way the world is structured. It is what we call the cancel culture that is so prevalent now. You're canceled, right? And that's hurting, and that's rejection, and that's painful. Because simply put, when we were in a tribal state, it's all about the need to be accepted, to be part of the tribe for survival purpose, right? If you don't have the support of the tribe, then you will be left alone to be fed to the tiger. But if the tiger comes to the village or come to the tribe, there's many others to come together to support you from being eaten or being pounced on, right? So therefore, the need to have a tribe is very important. More than just being fed to the tiger, it is also the whole tribe of people looking for food together, supporting each other, taking care of each other, right? So the need to be liked, supported, being popular, is somehow built into our DNA. So the ego is familiar with this. the ego is not familiar with the rejection of not being pretty enough, not having a social post that's actually accepted with that's gone viral or that have a lot of people liking it, right? So the ego has to learn a lot more, but yet at the same time, the ego also have a lot of past life experience. Let me break it down. Each and every one of us, when we talk about our own past life, our own past life could be a very different experience to our ego's past life or to our higher self's past life, because each of them are volunteers to come and support you in this current journey or this incarnation's journey. So, which is why I'm saying that sometimes the higher self may not be perfect, may not have all the experiences in need to just purely serve as your guide. The higher self is also here to experience life through you, right? So each and every one of them have their own past life experience, and they have all taken on past life beliefs and apply those skills to support you as a guide or as a protector. So why is the death of the ego bad for you? Well, if when I put it that way, about the ego being here to serve as a protector, does that make a lot of sense? Does that make more sense to you? Why there are certain triggers, why there are certain reactions that may not be popular to others that may find that, okay, this person is very defensive, this person is hard to work with because the ego is completely triggered, right? So what can cause an ego to be triggered? When they feel that there is a threat to cause pain or threat to cause death. So that's when an ego gets triggered. And so let's talk about that, right? When we talk about a person being defensive, when we talk about a person making remarks that is hurtful to others, and we say that, oh, this person is very egoistic, right? Think about the come from. Where is the person coming from when they get triggered and they have all these responses? So if the ego felt threatened that this person is going to feel pain, there will be some form of reaction, like the defensiveness of it. Let's just say at work, I did something wrong, right? And the boss is there to want me to own up, and I get a panic attack, right? And then the ego would then jump into action and say, let's be defensive about this, right? It is not entirely your fault. You're a victim of situation, and all that reaction, instead of just coming forth upfront to say that, yeah, I made a mistake. So does that make sense? Right? Why an ego is just trying to do his or her job. And his and her job, or her job, is really just here to protect you. So the death of the ego, what does that mean? So if I share some of the interesting experiences we have with our ego. So one client of mine, she is just so super fed up with her ego. The higher self didn't get along with the ego. The soul just couldn't stand the ego because the ego was always triggered and find it so difficult to allow the soul to make decision or to allow the higher self to do her job to guide. Because the ego carries with her a lot of past life pain, a lot of past life fears, a lot of past life belief systems that didn't serve in today's life. So she came to me to make a request, and the request was to fire the ego. And understanding the pain that she's gone through, we checked with the ego, and the ego was like, you know what, I'm fed up. I don't want to continue to serve as your ego because you just don't get me. I don't get you. Let's just happily part ways. So the ego has agreed to leave. Now, what happened? In our body or in this incarnation, we are to have rooms, a house for higher self, for soul, and for the ego. So when the ego take leave, what happens? It means that there's an empty room or an empty house within us. So the danger is this. When there is a space, it means that any wandering spirit may find it easy to come in and start making it home for themselves. So fortunately for the client, we had that realization early, and we were going through interviewing different egos to check with them who will come and best serve to allow her to live her purpose and yet to be able to guide her to be a good protector. So we managed to interview all the different souls to volunteer, and we found somebody suitable, or a soul that was suitable. But we have also come across cases where the ego couldn't take the stress anymore and left. And guess what happened? When I tapped in to look for the ego, some soul pretended to be an ego. And it's like, yeah, I'm the ego. I'm just minding my own business. Why do you want to check on me? And I'm like, what do you mean you're minding your own business? And the ego was like, yeah, I have a garden here. I'm quite busy in my garden. So it just completely made itself at home, even though it's taken the place of the ego, it is not serving as an ego. So this can happen when the ego, one, is too stressed to continue doing the job and left, or in the other case where we decided to fire the ego because it was just too difficult to work with. So there were many times when my team and myself have to step in to, I guess, harmonize the tree, the higher self, the ego, and the soul, to remind them that they're here to serve a purpose, to serve, to support the soul to fulfill this incarnation's experience, right? But it is sometimes quite difficult because each and every one of them, if they are very strong, opinionated, and have different ideas on where they need to go and what to do, there will be some level of agreement and negotiation on how to get them to collaborate and cooperate. So you just need to understand that within us, because we have three different souls with different experiences, bringing their lessons, belief systems that they had accumulated over many lifetimes to share through this incarnation, right? So how to get each and every one of them to be agreeable, to understand that they are here to serve one purpose. So it is quite an interesting navigation. So for those of us who actually had our higher self, or who has our higher self egos and souls working in collaboration, then there is complete alignment, and that we are walking in step towards what we want to experience in this incarnation. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a client, and the reason why he wanted a session, a full healing session, was because he literally could feel his higher self and his ego fighting, disagreeing. And when we tapped into the higher self, into the soul, we could see that the higher self and the soul have formed a clique and left the ego alone. And both the higher self and the soul said that the ego is primitive. it actually used the word primitive because the ego was actually from a lower dimension, like a fifth dimension, and is applying all its experiences from that dimension to apply here. Normally, that would probably work because Earth is on a trajectory of from the fourth to the fifth dimension. However, to support ascension, you do need to be a bit more open-minded to be able to perceive things from a higher dimension, which is what his higher self came as a 14th dimension guide. So the distance between the 14th dimension and the fifth dimensions is a bit different. Their approach, their belief, their problem solving, coming to a negotiation, agreement, and resolution was quite different. And he could literally feel them infighting within him. And he was not able to move and felt that there is a stagnation. So when it comes to a situation like this, the soul needs to know the soul is in charge. For the number of times that we blame our ego, the number of times when we say that our higher self is the one who took charge and guide us, we need to know that we are the soul that is in charge, and the soul is the one who makes decision. I hope that helps. So bringing back to why not embracing and not learning to love our ego is not a good idea, especially when you're on a spiritual growth path. When we are on a spiritual growth path, we are here to learn to embrace love of ourselves. And then when we are able to do that, then we have the capacity to love everyone else. Our responsibility is to find balance and be happy. Now, I know that there is a lot of war going on, and there's a lot of things going around that sometimes people find that it is hard to be happy. But happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is when you can find it within you to find peace and balance in whatever situation you're in. External factors that because you live or gone for an adventure, or you bought a new car or bought a new handbag, and that makes you happy? No. The happiness that we're referring to here, that we are responsible for, is the peace and happiness within. And that can only be found when you learn to know how to love yourself. And only through knowing how to love yourself, then we can love everything else. Love life, love job, love everything else that we're doing, right? So ego is very much part of us. So sometimes the conversations we need to have with the ego is one, to recognize that it can be here to protect us, and it got triggered because of two questions we need to ask the ego. Are you here to protect, or are you here to punish? So often when you hear the answer and you have that level of awareness, you will have a new perspective about what your ego is trying to do. And when, let's just say, the ego say, I'm here to punish you, you'll be like, okay, why do I deserve to be punished? Because I'm not good enough. Because I did wrong. Because by doing that, I'm creating more problems for myself, and therefore I need to be punished so that I never do it again. Then you understand the perspective, like why this ego is playing the role of a tough teacher, to just want to make you feel that you can be better. But usually I find that to be a very tough ego to work with as well. So we'll go through some level of negotiation as to why is it so important to be perfect. Or when you ask the ego, are you here to protect? Are you here to punish? And the answer is, I'm here to protect. Okay. the only reason why it feels that it needs to be here to protect is because it feels that you're not safe. So why is it not feeling safe? What exactly is the situation that makes the ego feels that you have put yourself in danger? So I hope that makes sense, because having that conversation with your ego will give you a deeper insight to who you are, what are some areas that you need to take a deeper look into, and to support you to be able to grow from there. Because we are all in the journey of ascension, we are all in the journey of raising our vibration so that we can understand the light that we have within. And when we understand the frequency and the light that we have within, we are able to raise the vibration and frequency on earth. And then therefore humanity will then have a chance for ascension. So it's a bit like the dominoes that we play. Each and every one of us, every journey, every step, every baby step makes a difference. So I would really suggest that we all come from a place of loving ourselves, and that includes loving our ego. So why did I come up with a topic like this today? It was because a lot of my clients came to me and said that I've been trying and meditating to kill my ego. And I'm like, why? Why is there such kind of concern that you need to meditate to kill your ego, or meditate on this meditation called the death of the ego? And it actually was very interesting. The response I got was that, oh, I'm not very liked by people, and people say that I come on too strong, I'm too tough, and I'm too difficult. And immediately, the ego got blamed for it, right? So that's really sad to think that when somebody's just doing the job, in this case, the ego was just trying to the job, trying to do his or her job, and got blamed for it. It is so important to help the ego to feel safe again, because the ego's main job is here to protect. That's the ego's main job, to protect you from pain and to protect you from death. So I guess these are the main points that I was going to share. I'm just going to check if there's any comments. Nope, there isn't any comments. Yeah, so I guess this will be a short chat today, because I haven't got my other co-host with me. Each and every one of them have been caught up and busy. But I thought it's such an important topic to just share with everybody. So in summary, in case you didn't get what I'm trying to say from the very beginning, I will just say this. In summary, we have 3 important aspects within us, and they are our higher self, our soul, and our ego. The higher self is here to serve as a guide. The ego is responsible for this incarnation's experience, and the ego is responsible to protect us, to keep us safe, so that we can embrace this whole incarnation and fulfill all the soul contract and the experiences that we want to take away from here. So why we don't talk about the death of the ego is because it's very much a makeup within us. And we never want to have no ego, because within us, there is a room for the ego. And if the ego is not there, another wandering spirit can take over and be an imposter and be somebody else, to pretend that it is the ego, or pretend to be something else and do weird things and say weird things. And you're going to have even a stranger, more complex life than just having your own ego, who is really briefed on knowing how to serve. And so finally, given that the ego, the soul, and the higher self are all aspects within us, and we all talk about loving ourselves, So why not love our ego too? So one tip to learn to coordinate or to collaborate with our ego is simply talk to our ego. Understand what are the ego's triggers, what is the ego afraid of, why is the ego not feeling safe, and this will give you a deeper insight to who we are, and you will soon learn to love your ego and love yourself even more. So I hope this helps, and I will see you again next week for episode 11. So today's a short one, and I hope you enjoy what I've just shared with you. Tune in again next week. See y'all. Bye.